Why do black Americans keep asking me if it's safe to visit Mexico? You're a black person living in the USA. I think you're asking the wrong questions. Don't let the US propaganda get to you. We don't have sundown towns in Mexico. We don't have politicians constantly trying to gerrymander and redistribute district lines to diminish your vote. Mexico doesn't have Confederate statues in front of government buildings. Our second president ever was a black man. When did the US get their first black president? None of your neighbors in Mexico will ever call the police on you because you look suspicious. No police officer is ever going to pull you over here in Mexico because you match the description. Despite being a US citizen in the US, they will always treat you as a second-class citizen. I know that the USA has done you guys dirty for most of its history, but not every country is as messed up as the USA, guys. The worst thing that can happen to you here in Mexico is you get a stomach ache because you had a great night with great food. But anyways, instead of asking, is Mexico safe to visit? Take a look around you. But anyways.
Are you a black person asking if it's safe to be black in Mexico when you live in America? Look, let me tell you a story. Now, I will admit how I walk through life is completely different from the average black person out here. I think it's because of my complexion. I think it's because I grew up in California. I'm a military brat. So I never have to walk in a way in which I have to protect myself from racism. If something pops off, then I'm triggered. But for the most part, the nurse is a black man. So he has to always be on alert when it comes to racism. His sister and his nephew and I went to dinner here in Atlanta. We went to Ted's Montana Grill in Atlanta, down the street from where we live. Atlanta, one of the blackest cities in the United States, right? We walked through the door all together. I'm still walking and I noticed that they're not next to me. All three of them are standing at the door looking at each other. His sister said, "Is it okay for us to be here?" Joking, but not joking. The entire restaurant was filled with European Americans. It wasn't until they saw a black couple at the bar that they agreed to move forward and sit down. The nurse and I went to Mexico and basically backpacked for 2 weeks. Bacalar, Tulum, Playa del Carmen, and Cancun. We were in taxis, we were on public transportation, we were on the megabus, we stayed in hotels, we stayed in Airbnbs, we were in small town villages and went to restaurants, went to grocery stores, we went to the big city. We were everywhere, did not speak the language. Keep in mind, he wasn't with me the entire time. I didn't get off until 2:00. So he was out living his life. We would walk through these small village towns that aren't even like touristy late at night after getting beers at the little hole in the wall down the street from the Airbnb. Not one time did the nurse pause or back up. We got back home and the nurse said there was not one time was he reminded that he was a black man. Let that sink all the way in. Going down the street in Atlanta, a known chocolate city, they stood at the door with the same fear as someone going to a white-only restaurant in 1950. Don't let America scare you from freedom. The nurse wanted to buy a condo. We actually went to go look at a couple of places while we were down there. That's how good he felt being in Mexico.